So I started this week, as I do most of my weeks, wondering what this Sunday talk is going to be about this Sunday. And so as I was wondering, I had a meeting with the website folks who are building a brand new website for Temple Buddhist Center and also for Unity Temple. It's going to be really, what I've seen is absolutely amazing. So I'm very excited about that. And one of the pages on the Temple Buddhist Center page was FAQ, frequently asked questions. And I'm like, what's that? And she told me all about the fact that a lot of people have questions about Buddhism in her research. And so she says, I think we should put an FAQ on there. And I'm like, oh. And then I went back to wondering what I'm going to talk about this Sunday. And then the next day I was at a friend's house, and in order for he and I to have some time together talking, they're laughing at the basket which just came down with all of the cards in it. So in order for my friend and I to talk, he set up a video game for his teenage son to play. And it's one of those football video games. I think the company is like EA Sports or something like that. But when it came on, the opening logo or motto for EA Sports is, question everything. And then I went back to wondering what my Sunday talk was going to be about this weekend. And then I received an email from one of our dear Sangha members. Can I say your name? Birgit sent me a beautiful poem by the poet Rilke, or actually the German pronunciation I think is... Okay, Rilke. Sorry, I'm not too good with the dialects. It was a lovely poem and really touched me. And the poem dealt a lot with the unresolved heart and questions. Then I went back to wondering what I was going to talk about this Sunday. And of course, isn't it beautiful? The universe just keeps sending you all these signs, and it's like the answers seem to always come in a form that we're looking, what is it? I'm just waiting for my ship to come in, but I'm always at the airport. The answers are always right there, right in front of you, but only when I'm still, and only when I am quiet, and I get to a place, the answers are then revealed. And they always seem to come in a form differently than what I was expecting. And so when I sat in meditation, there they were. Oh, my talk this Sunday is for the first time I'm going to try something new. And that is FAQ Sunday, to invite Sangha to send up on a card questions, things that are alive for you. And when that dawned on me, it was like a truckload of Oreo cookies. It was like a wonderful overwhelm. I was like, what a wonderful idea, because in this way I can better get used to and get to know all of the wonderful folks and souls in our Sangha. And in the same way, you get to hear what's alive for people. This is just, it's like, and for the first hour from 9 to 10, I was definitely afraid that no one was going to ask any questions, and then we'd all just be kind of sitting here looking at each other. But I was overwhelmed. I think every single person had a question. And so now I'm going, oh, well, okay, FAQ Sundays I think is going to become a thing. It's going to become a thing for us. So I'm ready. That's kind of the story of how FAQ Sunday came about. I found a quote that I wanted to share with you. Actually, it was shared with me by my wife. And the quote is, "The quality of the questions we ask impacts the quality of the answers we receive." The quality of the questions we ask impacts the quality of the answers we receive. And this has been the case very, very much for me. In fact, for a while I was asking my teacher, are we good? Everything all right? You think I need any training or any sessions? Is there something I'm missing? Are you noticing any unskillful behaviors or speech as we dialogue? And he'd just be like, And of course, this was an unsatisfactory answer. What do you mean? And of course, he just went, And it took me a while on the cushion to realize that it was the quality of my question was the problem. And as I sat with it, thank you, Rachel. As I sat with it, I realized that that question was coming from an insecure place, so therefore was an inauthentic question, really. It wasn't the deeper question, it was just a question. And the deeper question that I then brought to him after sitting with it was, how can I deepen my practice? Isn't it interesting to see the quality of the two questions? One's kind of insecure. You think I'm doing all right? Am I doing okay? You know, student to teacher, do you notice anything? I was fishing is what I was doing. As opposed to a heartfelt, how can I deepen my practice? And then he had a lot of response for me. So that goes back to the quality of the questions we ask impacts the quality of the answers we receive. So let us jump into some questions. And as more arise, I know there's still a few folks who are writing. You can send those up. Rachel or Mock or somebody can get those. All right. These are some wonderful questions. Let's start here just right on the top. What is the best practice for living in a mindful, non-judging way in order to not judge others? So this question, for me, speaks directly to mindfulness itself. And what I mean by that is that judging by itself will arise in our mindfulness. I had a teacher who took me on a walk through the woods one time. And he pointed out to me that nothing in nature judges. Nothing in nature judges. It is a construct and a concept of the mind. And he then put me on a practice for, he said, see if through the course of one day you can count your judgments. I couldn't make it through an hour. They were overwhelming. And sometimes it was just things like, well, that's beautiful, or that's lovely. It's still a judgment. And it was never present. It was never mindful. Mindfulness itself captures the judgment, sees it. If you're intensely mindful, you'll notice that you have an experience, and quickly, almost instantaneously after that, comes the overlay of story and judgment, commentary, experiences that you've had in the past and connecting them up. The mind does this automatically. There's no you even involved. This speaks to the Buddhist practice of selflessness. Mindfulness puts a wedge right there, right in this key point. This can be a satori. This can be an incredible experience when you can actually be with something and then be mindful of all the stories, judgment, and commentary that arises afterwards. All random babble. What's true is the experience and the moment that you have with it. So, the practice of non-judgmentalism or non-judging speaks to mindfulness itself. You have an experience. Let's say you flip on the TV and maybe there's a political figure saying or doing something that brings up judgment in you. If you'll notice mindfulness of that moment, that when whatever was said on TV may have caused a moment of fear or a moment where you don't feel in control, that's truth. Everything that comes after is just your mind generating stories, judgment, commentary about that television program, that thing that you saw. So the practice is to just see if you can notice judgment in all of its forms. Awareness unties every knot we have. When you become aware of judgment, you can release it and not get hooked in. As Pema Chodron says with the Shempa, the sticky quality of the judgmental story that then takes you on a ride. Wow. Because you'll make a judgment, and then you'll form a judgment after that, and then here comes a story, and then another thought, and then, by golly, I'm going to get back, here's what I'm going to do. And then you're launched into social action from a place of hatred and a place of us and them, instead of a place of social action from a place of the heart, compassion, and love. It doesn't mean you don't call. It doesn't mean you don't write letters. It doesn't mean you don't parade and march, but you do it from a place because it's the right thing for you to do, not because there's an us and a them and hatred and anger, because that's exactly where they're coming from, which is what pushed your buttons in the first place. Thank you for the question. And the practice is to just be aware of judgment when it arises. Thank you. I feel so excited because I'm finally getting to know you. Because see, I can't go have breakfast and coffee with everybody after Sangha, like so many do, because I have the 9 to 10, I have to prepare for the 10:30, and then I have to clean up afterwards. I sometimes meet a few folks at Sangha at 11:30, but this is wonderful because I get to see what's alive for you. What happens to thoughts when we release them during meditation? It's a touching question because there's an innocence in it. My teacher would always say, as we would be doing personal wisdom training and thoughts and emotions would bubble up and we would breathe them out, or sometimes we would hook up a spigot and drain them into Mother Earth. The Buddhists have a saying, from the mud grows the lotus. We release these thoughts and these emotions, we release them into the universe, into Mother Earth, where the universe will do and create beautiful things from them. They are released. The universe knows what to do with them. It is us where they get stuck. Generate other thoughts, thought trains. It's this precious human form that struggles with anger and fear. And it's also this human form that releases those and realizes love, compassion, understanding, equanimity. It's all right here. It's not going on out there. When we purify and release the thoughts, the emotions, the defilements, as they say in Buddhism, then what arises is love, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, being simply present with all that arises and falls, with impermanence. Thank you for the question. Regarding clarity, when you are in the middle of a situation and you do not have time to go to the cushion, how do you check yourself for clarity to be sure you are seeing the situation with clarity? Especially early in my practice, clarity always came a day or two later. When confronted with a specific situation, especially if it was intense and perhaps had a lot of emotion connected to it, my practice now is to be as present with what is arising in me as possible. My teacher used to say, no one has ever done anything to you. Those of you that have read the Four Agreements recognize that as life is not personal. When you're in an experience, when you're in a situation, to be present with it as much as possible, notice what's arising in you. Notice what emotion, see if you can understand, or at least just label, just recognize the emotion. Oh, wow, that's anger arising in me. I had a friend who was a therapist who used to say that on an intensity level of 1 to 10, if your emotional intensity level gets up to a 4 or a 5, there is no negotiation that's going to happen. There is no conscious dialogue that is going to be effective. You're past the point of no return. You're into your emotion now. You must find space and time. So in a situation, in an experience that has a lot of intensity, my practice now is to be present with what's arising in me. And for me, in those situations, generally, what I want to do is not react, but respond. So generally, what that's going to look like is not a lot. I'm going to let the situation simply play out. If a response is needed from me at that time, then I'm going to try to respond from the heart, from being present. In fact, it might even look like I'm overwhelmed right now, and I'm going to have to get back to you on this. I cannot provide a response now. May I give you a response in an hour or two? If it is a dire situation, then at that point, instinct may take over. Instinct may be that I turn and leave. Instinct may be that I may need to protect myself, if it's that intense. Instinct may be that I get help. That's all instinctual. There's no one involved in that. You're not really there. That's instinct kicking in. There was a time I was on I-35, and this is a crazy story. When I look back, this was insane, but it was absolutely instinctual. There was no me involved. I was coming down I-35, rounding the big curve where you get on Mission Road to come up to Westport Road. And as I was coming around, a family of ducks, a large one, was coming onto the highway. Several cars, 2 or 3 lengths ahead of me, did not stop, and several goslings were killed. Instinct absolutely took over. I slowed down, I put on my flashers, and I actually turned my car sideways to protect the ducks as they made their way to the center of the highway. This was insane. I would never tell anyone to do this. And this was the most amazing experience of my life because there was no me. This was just something I had to do, and I just did it. If I'd have thought about it, I would have just kept going or done something sane. I don't know what, but that was crazy. But it was instinctual. And as the ducks made their way to the center, lots of other people, some people honked and yelled, other people they saw what was happening, and they also began to form somewhat of a barricade and some people got out and were directing traffic. And a lady with a truck came by, and she had a crate, and they were able to gather all the ducks up, and she took them to a pond. But in an intense situation, if it's really intense, instinct will take over. If it's not intense, then be present with what is arising for you. If you need to dismiss yourself in a situation, do so. If not, respond from the heart and what is needed. You can then process it on the cushion when you are able to. Work with a teacher. Find out what was going on, what happened in the situation. Talk with Sangha members, spiritual friends. You can process it at a later time. Oh dear. Oh, here comes a few. Oh, thank you. Oh, I see the basket came back down. Thank you. There's a couple of these that are really, really long, and I appreciate that. And since you did include your email, I will respond by email if that's okay. I am considering or contemplating the koan, and it is written M-U. How it is pronounced, I am unsure. Please give your brief comment to help me understand oneness, our connectivity with all sentient beings. This is wonderful. The koan practice, a deep Zen practice, it is my understanding, having asked about koans in the past, number one, anything that you are deeply contemplating can be a koan, but the koan practice, it was always never really your response to your teacher. It was what they were sensing your response to be. So when you come back to them with what is the sound of one hand clapping, you could give them 100 responses, and they would sense from their heart where this answer came from. And if they felt that it was coming from a place of authenticity, they may respond. Otherwise, it would go back to the cushion and sit with it. So, if you are contemplating a koan in the Zen practice, then your answer is between you and your teacher. And God help you. Because mine were merciless. My answer to the rest of the question, which is understanding oneness and connectivity with all sentient beings, I want you to picture this in your mind's eye for a moment. Imagine a beautiful, brilliant light bulb. Now take a brown paper bag, place it over the light bulb, and you punch 7 billion holes in it. Each hole is a different size, a different shape, and is in a different location, but each one is the same light. That's who we all are. The whole makes no difference. The color of the whole, the size of the whole, where the whole was born. None of that matters. All that matters is the light. And that's oneness. We are all consciousness. We are all awareness. It's the same awareness. When we die, when this human form dissolves back into Mother Earth, we are simply returned to the larger awareness. It's not simply reduced down to the awareness coming from this little form. It's the big awareness. You're suddenly aware of everything. I actually do not know the answer to this next question. It comes from a deep study of Buddhist ideas and concepts. In fact, my friend Rachel might know the answer to this. What is the significance of 108? Rachel makes these malas. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I phone a friend.
She said phone a friend.
I honestly don't know. And I don't know.
It's an auspicious number.
It is an auspicious
It is.
number.
Yeah.
I used to have a yoga teacher that would make us do 108 sun salutations. Talk about a workout.
She's raising her hand.
Thank you.
I think 108 refers to the different defilements.
I see.
That's my understanding.
Okay. This might be, thank you for that. She says that her understanding is that it refers to the 108 defilements. So this might be a job for Google too. So we have time for one more. I used to have regular meditation practice through Serenity Pause, which, by the way, we have meditation twice a day, 365 days a year here at Unity Temple and Temple Buddhist Center. One at 12:10 to 12:40 and one at 5:30 to 6. After several months, I realized I need to get back to regular practice. The past couple months has been very difficult between my husband and I. He lost a job due to performance issues and due to alcoholism. He has joined AA and has been sober since. I have been going to Al-Anon, but with sobriety, things have not been easier. We now have difficulty communicating, and now we are afraid of saying anything to each other. We are just reacting negatively to each other. I have learned not to say anything to what he says, but now there is somewhat of a wall. What is a Buddhist practice on what to do with this? Thank you for a very real and authentic question. And so what comes up for me is, again, the mindfulness practice and being aware of what is arising. These precious human forms have developed, because of conditioning, triggers. Things get triggered. There's the old story of the spoon in the sink, which is the husband places a spoon in the sink and the wife becomes outraged. To him, it's just a spoon. To her, it is disrespecting all the cleaning that she did all day. We don't know what may trigger our partners, and our partners are our best hope for awakening, because they will show us where we are stuck. So beginning right there and understanding that we have triggers and we only hurt the ones we love. I know it's cliche, but it's true, because, like I said, our partners are our best hope for waking up, because they show us where we are stuck. My practice says that in situations like these, it is best to seek the help of professionals. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg is a life-transforming book. It helps people understand where they are coming from and the ways that we speak to each other that are violent. So there are books, there are professionals, there are friends and people that can help in this situation. And yes, there are many Buddhist practices, such as when you notice that you are triggered, each of you have an agreement to stop and sit and simply become mindful of what deep inside of you is triggered. I have a conversation with my wife not too long ago. She said something that angered me, and instead of responding out of anger, I told her, I feel triggered. I need to sit. And when I sat with this, what came up for me was my fear of abandonment, because she mentioned going on a trip with some friends. I became triggered because I have, as a child, experienced abandonment issues. That got triggered, so instead of actually confronting her in an angry way, saying, oh yeah, sure, just go off with all your friends, what am I supposed to, sit here at the house? Which would have been an old speech pattern, an old behavior that I would have exhibited years ago. I was able to sit with it. I could see where it came from. Compassion could arise for the experiences that this form has been through, and I could respond to her from a place of love and compassion, which is, I am excited that she's excited about a trip. And I left it there. And then, a little later, she said, hey, you're coming on this with me, aren't you? Had I approached it from the old place, we would have been locked in a fight that would have only led to more walls. Because I sat with it, and love, compassion, sympathetic joy arose. And I told her how happy I was for her and her excitement to go on this trip. And a few moments later, she wanted to make sure that I knew that I was invited. And that is practice. I'm dreadfully sorry. Now that FAQ Sundays are such an amazing thing, and I see so many folks are interested in it, I'll allow more time for them. I want to close today with the poem that Birgit sent to me. Let's take a deep breath. It's a short poem, and then I will send out a dedication of merit for our time together today. I beg you to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a foreign language. Do not search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday in the near future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way